कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरु वैष्णवांश श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितां त्वां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे.
Thank you, Mataji, for such a beautiful recitation. So we are at chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita. We are going to recite verses 26 and 27 today. We'll see whether we can cover 28, but I'm not very sure. And before we start the recitation and discussions of these two verses, I would like to ask Haladhar Das Prabhu to guide us on the recitation.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanyavad for let me serve. Okay, so it's in Bhagavad Gita, page number 657, chapter 17, text number 26 and 27 together. So the wordings are Sadbhave sadhu bhave cha saditye tat prayujyate prasaste karmani tata sat shabda partayujyate. And 27 is Yagne tapasidane cha stiti saditi chochate karma chaiva tadartiyam saditeva vidiyate. This is Sanskrit way. People who does not know Sanskrit probably use the English way. Prabhupada has explained it. So I'll recite it. Sadbhave sadhu bhave cha sat iti etat prayujyate prasaste karmani tata sat shabda partayujyate. Number 27. Yagne tapasidane cha sthiti saditi chochate karma chaiva tat artiyam sat iti eva vidiyate. Please try it, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prasad reading. Shraddhave sadhu bhave sa sadit तत्प्रयुज्यते प्रशस्ते कर्माणि तथा सब शब्द पार्थयुज्यते यज्ञे तपसि दाने च स्ते सदिति चोत्यते कर्म चैव तदिर्थं सादित्ते वाभिधीयते. हरे कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna, Harshita speaking. Sadbhave sadhubhave cha saditi tat prayujyate prashaste karmani tatha sat shabda partayujyate. Text number 27. Yajne tapasi dane cha sthitihi sad iti chochyate karma chaiva tad arthiyam saditi eva bhidhiyate.
Hare Krishna. सद्भावे साधुभावे च सद्दित्येत प्रत्युज्यते प्रशस्ते कर्मणि तथा सच्छब्द प्रार्थयुज्यते. Text number 27. यज्ञे तपसि दाने च स्थितिः सदिति चोच्यत कर्म चैव तदतिर्घ्यं सदित्येवाभिधीयते. हरे कृष्ण.
This is Ashwini. Sadbhave sadhubhave cha sadityeta pratyajate prashaste karmani ratha sachas sabda partha yujjate yajne tapasi dane cha stiti saditi chochate karma chaiva tadarthithya sadityeva bhidiyate.
Good try, man.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else who would like to recite the verses? Okay, I'll recite. Sadbhave sadhubhave cha sad ityetya prayujyate prashaste karmani tatha sat shabdah partha yujyate yagye tapasi dane cha sthiti sad iti uchyate karma chaiva tadarthiyam sadityeva bhidhiyate. Hare Krishna. Since there are, I think, 5 devotees, we will divide the reading of the word for word meaning, the translation, and the purport amongst everybody. So, Haladhar Das Prabhu, if you want to do the word for word meaning, and then maybe Harshita Mataji, you can do the translation, and the purport can be divided amongst the other 3 devotees.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. I just joined, but I will be.
Mataji, go ahead. You
I
can
will
do the
be just
recitation also. Yeah.
recitation, and I will be on mute then. Sadbhave sadhubhave cha sadityetat prayujyate prashaste karmani tatha satchadvam partha yajne tapasi dane cha stitihi sadatito chochyate karma chaiva tad karma chaiva tadardhiyam sadityevabhidiyate. Hare Krishna.
Okay. Dhanyavad Prabhu. So I'll go word by word. The meaning. Sadbhave, in the sense of nature of the Supreme. Sadhubhave, in the sense of nature of the devotee. Cha, also. Sat, the word. The word Sat. Iti, thus. Etat, this. Prayujyate, it is used. Prasaste, in bona fide karmani activities. Tata, also. Sat, sadbhave. Sadbhave. The sound, sound Sat. Partha, the son of Prita. Yujate is used. Yajne, in a yagne, it's in a sacrifice. Tapsi, in a penance. Dane, in charity. Cha, also. Sthiti, the situation. Sat, the supreme. Iti, thus. Cha, and ujjate is the pronounced. Karma, the work. Cha, also. Eva, certainly. Tat, for that. Artiyam means Sat, the supreme. Sat, the supreme. Iti, thus. Eva, certainly. Abhidiyate is indicated. Okay, somebody gonna read the translation, please.
Yes, Prabhuji. Absolute truth is the objective of devotional sacrifice, and it is dedicated by the word Sat. The performer of Sat sacrifice is also called Sat, as are all wakas of sacrifice, penance, and charity, which, true to the absolute nature, are performed to please the spiritual person, O son of Pritha. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Maybe the devotees can, between themselves, read few sentences from the purport.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Shamarasika here. Purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The words prasate karmani or prescribed duties indicates that there are many activities prescribed in the Vedic literature which are purificatory processes, beginning from the time of conception up to the end of one's life. Such purificatory processes are adopted for the ultimate liberation of the living entity. In all such activities, it is recommended that one vibrates Om Tat Sat. The words Sat Bhave and Sadhu Bhave indicates the transcendental situation. Acting in Krishna consciousness is called Sattva, and one who is fully conscious of activities of Krishna consciousness is called Sadhu or Sadhu. In the Srimad Bhagvatam 3.25.25, it is said that the transcendental subject matter becomes clear in the association of the devotees. Hare Krishna. Ashwini Mataji, you would like to read?
Apologies. Sorry, I do not have English version, so I thought I'll read the Sanskrit one. Sorry about that. I'm trying to.
No, it's okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Will
I can read it.
Yeah, go ahead, Prabhu.
Yeah, the word used or satam prasangat. Without good association, one cannot achieve transcendental knowledge. When initiating a person or offering the sacred thread, one vibrates the word Om Sat Om Tat Sat. Similarly, in all kind of performance of yoga, the object is the supreme Om Tat Sat. The word Tad Arthyam further means offering service to anything which represents the supreme, including such service as cooking and helping in the world, Lord temple, or any other kind of work for broadcasting the glories of the Lord. The supreme word Om Tat Sat are thus used in many ways to perfect all activities and make everything complete. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, dear devotees. Since Sharanagata Mataji is not here, we are continuing the conversations and the discussions in her absence. I seek everybody's blessings that our discussions are successful. So before we begin, I just wanted to do a little bit of recollection of where we are. So in that sense, in chapter 17, the chapter itself begins with Arjun Maharaja's inquiry as to the faith. And the Lord says that the faith, in response, he says, the faith, the food that we eat, the sacrifices that we perform, the austerities that we undertake, and the austerities that are actually of three kinds, that is the body, the mind, and the speech. So all three of them, as well as charities that we do, they all are afflicted by three modes of material nature. So they all could be tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic. As devotees, we are supposed to be endeavoring to have the faith, the food that we eat, the sacrifices that we perform, the austerities that we take, and the charity that we perform to all be in the mode of sattvic or mode of goodness. And from there, we need to transition it because mode of goodness is also binding. So we need to take all of these activities, purify them in Krishna consciousness. And that's exactly what Prabhupada is going to speak of in the purport here. And how do we purify? And why do we need to purify? So the thing is, even when things are performed in sattvic mode, they are binding. They bind us in the sense of happiness and in a sense of knowledge. So we need to go beyond that. Now, we know that we cannot give these activities up. You cannot really give up faith. It's part of the nature. Either you have it or you don't, but it is still part of that nature. And what kind of faith we have is also part of the nature. The food we cannot give up. And then the Lord is saying, even for those who are highly elevated souls, who are pure and pious, in chapter 18, he's going to speak of it. He says that even they should not be giving up sacrifices, austerity, and charity. In chapters 3 to 5, we've continuously read about Karma Yoga, and the Lord says no one can give up their karma, and one must perform the karma according to their nature. And he has spoken of karma, akarma, and then in there he speaks of the concept of dushkarma, satkarma, uh, nishkam karma, and then karma yoga. So we need to think of all of those things as we progress, right? A student of the second grade cannot forget what we've read in the first grade. And similarly, a student in the 10th grade cannot forget whatever he's done through, or when they are in the secondary school, forget what they've read and learned in the primary school. So now that we are in chapter 17, we should think of, when we read the purports, when we read these verses, we should link it to what has the Lord said before, because what that does is it increases our ability to understand what is being said, and increase our ability to even understand the words that Prabhupada uses in the purports of these verses, because the conversation itself is happening at a very elevated level between the Lord and his supreme devotee. And then the purport is being written by another very elevated soul who's tried to come to our level. See, the thing is, they are trying to come to our level to tell us how to understand and how to interpret. But that doesn't mean that we are actually capable. So we have to do certain amount of manan, pathan, and chintan. We have to think about it. We have to read about it continuously, and we have to start creating links. So that's why it is important. In the last class, we spoke of some verses that came to my mind, and we had discussed those. I had spoken of the Chatushloki Bhagvatam, and then the second verse of that Chatushloki Bhagvatam in relation to the previous three verses. We had also spoken of, chapter 3, verse 9, chapter 5, verse 29, chapter 9, verses 26 and 27, and then chapter 13, verse 23. Today, as I was reflecting on these verses, I was also thinking of another verse from chapter 2. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasavarjam rasiyapi asya param drashtva nivartate. So we all will have tendencies, and those tendencies remain with us. So even after we have gained certain knowledge, certain level of bhakti, those tendencies remain. How do you purify those tendencies? Param drashtva nivartante. We need to link them to the Lord. And that is exactly what is being spoken of in these last three verses. We also, in the purports, Prabhupada says, and why must this be done? Because if you don't do this, everything else is temporary. The moment you link it to the permanent, the nature of what we do in the temporary world itself becomes permanent. And that is the mercy of the Lord, that while this body is temporary, the body that interacts with the matter is temporary, the shape and form of that matter is temporary, the energy that we use is taken from this world. All of that is of temporary nature. But when we link it to the Lord, it is that consciousness that we have that is of linking things to the Lord that makes the temporary items and the outcome that is temporary, the energy that is temporary, the performer, in that sense, the body is temporary. All of that actually starts to become permanent. It gives us the permanent benefit. And what is that permanent benefit? Everything else really dies down with the body. But that which we do for the soul, that which molds the consciousness of our soul, that is the permanent benefit. And then in that context, we had read of verse 40 from chapter 2, Neha Bhikramana Shosti. We had also read Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma. And we had also read Parthaneva Namutra Vinashastasya Vidyate. That, we can very quickly progress on devotional path. There is no diminution in these activities. And the Lord says, just declare it boldly that my devotee will never suffer any type of debility. So, coming back to these immediate verses, in verse 23, verse 24, we spoke of, the Lord actually spoke of the importance of the word Om. Actually, in verse 23, he says Om Tat Sat, right? Purify everything by saying Om Tat Sat. Then he explains what Om is in verse 24. He explains what Tat is in verse 25. And now in verses 26 and 27, he's explaining the significance of the word Sat. So together they form that Om Tat Sat that he spoke of in verse 23. So Om is, again, just to recap, refers to Lord Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat actually may mean that it is the differentiated world. But even that differentiated world is also the Lord himself, right? He said that he is, I think in chapter 7, verse 4, he says that, Prakriti, I'm not getting the words of that shloka, but Prakriti Bhinna Ashtada or something like that. So he says that there are these 8 types of things that is just me and my energies. And then he's explained all of how he's in every part of this creation, in everything that is in this creation, and how we can think of him in this creation in the subsequent chapters. And then we know that this entire world has come from him, and it becomes Maya only when we disconnect the world from him. Otherwise, it is spiritual. So even this temporary material world that is there in front of us can be spiritual, is actually spiritual, because it has come out of it. It only becomes Maya and material when we disconnect it from him, when we try to take ownership of it, we try to satisfy ourselves rather than him. So again, this is now linking back to the verse 59 of chapter 2, where I had said that, param drashtva nivartante. Now let's get into the very verses that we are reading. So the verse actually begins with, and every single word is actually quite significant in these 2 verses. Sadbhave, sadhu bhave cha. So sadbhave is for the Lord. Sadhu bhave is in devotional pursuit or spirit to serve the Lord. And cha, both have to be there. So when both are present, then it becomes sat. And what is sat? So, in Sanskrit, in our literature, we would have read so many times sat and asat. And the upbranch of that word asat is asatya. And the upbranch of the word sat is satya in that sense. And meaning has started to get contorted of the sat and asat. Because we are influenced by other languages and other culture. So sometimes sat and asat is seen as, oh, it is true or false, or it is understood as right or wrong. But it is not, because right and wrong is a limited understanding of sat and asat. True or false is a very limited understanding of sat and asat. Sat really means what is the reality, and asat means anything that is taking us away from that reality. So what we know from our Krishna consciousness studies is, what is the reality? The reality is that everything belongs to him, everything has come from him. He is the creator, he is the maintainer, he is the destroyer, and he is also somebody who remains after everything is destroyed. So think of that as the earth. If a plant comes from the earth, it stays in the earth, it is sustained by the earth, it grows because of the earth, its offsprings grow because of the earth, etc. And then when it is destroyed, it goes back into the earth. But the earth always remains. Similar is the concept that the Lord always remains. uh, that is the reality. Another reality which we read in chapter 15 verse 7 is aham mamevanshu jivaloke. So we are parts and parcels of him. We are also indestructible entity. He says so in chapter 2, I think, verse 17, where he says, Avinashi tu tad viddhi, that like know that you are that indestructible soul. So the reality is this: everything belongs to him, everything has come from him. It actually is of spiritual nature. We are supposed, we are parts of him. We are also indestructible. And because we are parts of the whole, we are supposed to serve the whole. And the moment we don't do any of this, it becomes asat. It is not the reality. So when we say that I am the father, I am the so and so in this organization, I am the son of this, or I am the husband of this person, or the wife of that person, whichever way we think through these things, these are taking away from that reality that we are actually the servants of Lord. And we need to keep coming back into that reality. Then that is Sat. And that Sat is what is indicated in this verse. So when we think of the Supreme Lord in a devotee's mindset and think of everything around us, then that is Sat. Now, the next line is around Prashaste. Sorry, one another thing. So why the word cha in between, right? Both Sadbhave and Sadhubhave, both are required. So if suppose Sadhubhav is missing, that is, we don't want to serve the Lord, we don't want to please the Lord. And in the previous verse, it is said, if it is not for moksha akanksha, then these are material activities. They are temporary. They are even if they are sattvic, they are not going to give us the benefit for the soul. It will benefit the body in this body or the next body. So that's why the sadbhav, thinking of the Lord, is important along with the sadhubhav, and that cha is important. If one is missing, it is going to reduce from the concept of sat. If the Supreme Lord is not thought of, then we are assigning our devotion to somebody else. And if the sadhu bhav is missing, then also whatever we do, even in the pursuit of the Lord's devotion, may give us temporary benefits. So, I mean, the Lord himself will slowly and progressively direct us back, but you should not approach the Lord for temporary benefits. Sadhu bhav, the true bhav of a devotee, is to serve and please the Lord. Now, what in the previous words the Lord has said is, when you say Om Tat Sat, it purifies activities. And now we've understood what these three words are. Om is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Tat is everything, the entire paraphernalia that we see around us is Tat, and that is also the Supreme Lord. And Sat is the reality, which again is the Supreme Lord. So Om Tat Sat, it signifies individually by these three words and together by these three words the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is that linking process. And what is it that we are linking? Prashaste karmani, not any other activity. Prashaste karmani. And what is Prashaste karmani? These are the bona fide activities or prescribed duties that we have. So you cannot say, I'm going to purify my act of thieving, stealing, dacoiting, looting, killing somebody, harming somebody, and say Om Tat Sat and I will be purified. No. It is the prashaste karmani that can be purified. Other karmas cannot or should, you should not use Om Tat Sat. I mean, they are purificatory processes, but you don't. One should not think of Om Tat Sat and perform bad activities. That's not in the nature of the devotee. So what is being said here is the prescribed duties that we have. And there are two types of prescribed duties. Prabhupada has spoken of, I don't remember now the verse in which he's talked about, but he says there are duties that are once at the atmic level, at the soul level, which is to serve the Lord. Then once, until you are at that level where you don't think of yourself as the body, then there are duties, prescribed duties, when you are in that bodily consciousness. In the bodily consciousness, we are supposed to follow the Varnashram Dharma. And whatever is the duty prescribed for the Varna or the ashram we are in, we should follow that. And those duties can now be purified with these three words. And then in the next three words, those activities basically the Lord is saying yajna, tapa, and dana. So when you associate it by thinking of this reality, Sat, and when we perform those to please the Supreme Lord, then they are purificatory. They yield us permanent benefit. So this is the, just looking at the verses themselves and how I had internalized that. But let's see now the purport itself. So in the purport, there are some very significant things the Prabhupada is bringing about. So he is talking of so prashaste karmani we talked about the prescribed duties. But later on he says, in all such activities, it is recommended that one vibrate Om Tat Sat. The words Sadbhave and Sadhubhave indicate the transcendental situation. We covered that also. But the moment it is either Sadbhav is missing or Sadhubhav is missing, it starts to become material situation. And we as devotees are endeavoring. Sadhana is basically to convert material into spiritual, to make us transcendental. Transcend means transcend the boundary of matter and spirit to get into the spiritual world. So both should be present. Otherwise, we will be always, in touch with or living in the material situation. Then he says, a few sentences after that, the words used are satam prasangat. So how is one supposed to purify activities? Because after this class is over, the thoughts of what we discuss carry in our mind for some time, and slowly the effect starts to reduce. How do we reinforce? How do we keep them going? And this is where the master is talking about it. He is saying, without good association, one cannot achieve transcendental knowledge. He's telling us, just imagine his mercy and his, amount of concern for us. Because in these 2-3 verses, there is nothing about, the Lord is not saying how you can purify, how you can remain in the purificatory state of mind. The Prabhupada is saying it is so important, be in touch with the devotees, because if you are not in touch with the devotees, sadhu bhav will not remain constantly in our mind, and it will get contaminated. The more we are not in touch with devotees, but in touch with non-devotees or our environment, slowly that environment will start to influence us. So it is that, that true concern that's almost like a mother has for a child. Prabhupada is putting in these words. These sentences are so potent. So he's saying, be in the association of the devotees, because without that, you cannot have sadhubhav. if you do not have sadhu bhav, you cannot have pure activities. If you cannot have pure activities, you cannot transcend this. You cannot, in the word is, you cannot please the Supreme Lord. You cannot even think of moksha. So that is the significance of this sentence here. And then Prabhupada is also talking about that any and every activity, there are so many activities he speaks of, any and every activity can be purified, and we should always say Om Tat Sat. So when we are in doubt, we do things, right? Like last time we had a discussion around whether this charity is good or bad. It is in which kind of mode it is. We are performing. We are in the Grahastha ashram. We are doing these things. Okay, we will not have the clarity of thought at times. We may get into situations that are confusing. In those situations, by uttering the word Om Tat Sat in the devotional spirit and thinking of the Lord, then it doesn't matter whether the original nature of that activity and circumstance was rajasic or tamasic. It will actually give you a much higher benefit because you've linked it to the Supreme Lord. And the last sentence here is, these supreme words, Om Tat Sat, are thus used in many ways to perfect all activities and make everything complete. So here I was thinking of chapter 3, verse 15. So, Karma Brahmodbhavam Vidhi, Brahma Akshar Samudbhavam, Tasmat Sarvagatam Brahma, Nityam Yagye Pratishtitam. So, karma is described in the Vedas. Vedas have come from the Supreme Lord, and therefore all acts of karma can lead to, are situated in Brahma. So that please read that words, please read the purport of that word, and try to see how that verse links with this. I felt that there is a link here, but if you have the interest, you can think about it, and don't just think about this verse. Anything that you when you read these purports, when you hear this conversation, when you hear some other acharya speak about it, your own understanding and study of Bhagavad Gita will be deeper when you make these connections and then try to say, okay, what was said in that purport, what is being said here, and how do they link? If you think about, another verse that came to my mind was in chapter 4, verse 24. Brahmarpanam Brahma Havir Brahmagno Brahmanam Urtam Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. Again, the concept of that verse also is, everything is coming from Brahma, everything is being performed in Brahma, everything that is given out and the outcome is also in Brahma. And with that kind of thing and performance of those acts, a person can situate himself in Brahma. So if you can think of, Ishopnishad, Om Purnamada Purnamidam. So these things, all of this come together in our mind. So this was my thought process of internalizing these two verses. I will take a pause here and look for questions or comments from other devotees. I'm happy to be guided if I have stated something that is not accurate, not complete, or misinterpreted. And I'm also very keen to hear from everybody else what their realization and internalization of the verses is. Hare Krishna.
It's a very nice, the beautiful way you have explained and connected many verses, Prabhu. Beautiful. One thing I always have a question myself, that in every chapter, in ISKCON Bhagavad Gita, as it is, it's mentioned. In earlier stage, I read the other Bhagavad Gita where I used to attend the other temples in my childhood. And those Bhagavad Gita, at the end of each chapter, it mentioned like Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supnisatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Arjun Vishad Yogo Nam Pratamodhyaya, and it says Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat. So if you go all 18 chapters, it's a mention, different chapters name, like you go chapter number 8, Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Supnisatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Akshar Brahm Yogo Namastamodhyaya Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om Tat Sat. So why Prabhupada or ISKCON didn't consider this kind of endings, I believe this comes from the Sankaracharya Maharaj, So what is different, Prabhu, there? Why is so? Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I'm incapable of answering that question, Prabhu.
Okay.
I may have to ask somebody or do some research on it and see why Prabhupada has not spoken of it, or he's added those, invocation verse at the beginning of the chapter and at the end of the chapter, the invocation verse.
Yeah,
But
because usually it's like, say, that's the end of Bhakti Vedanta purport to 17th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, matter of division of faith.
yes,
I mean, each chapter has a different way it's explained. But I like to understand it. Simple. Sorry, if you cannot,
no,
that's fine.
I don't want to give my interpretation on this, Prabhu.
Okay.
I haven't read nor thought of it before. So,
Okay. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, even in the Vishnu Sahasranama also when you end, we say Om Tat Sat, right? Most of the stotram and slokas, and Om Shanti, just like Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat, that's what we conclude.
the only thing
Mhm.
in my mind is, Prabhu, that it's the way Prabhupada is. Again, as I said, this is my interpretation, right? So it's not authentic. But what comes to my mind is Prabhupada's emphasis has been what exactly occurred and transpired on the battlefield of Kurukshetra between Krishna and Arjuna. And his Bhagavad Gita, he's named Bhagavad Gita as it is. Like what was there at that time, exactly that, nothing else but that, and no other interpretation other than what was talked about between the two of them. No other addition, dilution, speculation, other than just that conversation. And the place where, so what is the meaning of the purport? The purport is there to elaborate a little bit of that. So that, I guess, that may have been the reason why Prabhupada did not add any of the other customary things. I'm not suggesting that starting or ending it with Om Tat Sat is wrong. In fact, most of our scriptural activities do start and end with Om Tat Sat. Prabhupada himself says in the purports of these verses that everything starts with Om Tat Sat. Everything has begun, has always been like this, and everything has been purified by chanting Om Tat Sat. So that's so it's not like Prabhupada didn't think of it that way, but his thought process perhaps was either thinking about the as it is aspect of it, or if you think about the end of every chapter in Bhagavad Gita as it is. The essence of what you said in the Sanskrit is covered in those sentences. What is missing is Hari Om Tat Sat. Right, Prabhu? Read
Yeah.
what Prabhupada said in English. It is exactly what is said, what you mentioned in Sanskrit. But the only missing portion is Om Tat Sat or Hari Om Tat Sat. Anyway, not my. I should not even venture to say anything there.
No, I understand. I mean, we're not the authority to say anything about, but we have a right to understand it as well,
Oh, absolutely. Pariprashnena sevaya. Ask and again ask and ask.
Yes, true.
I'm happy to have other comments or realizations shared by other devotees, please. We are actually at 8:10, so we may not be able to cover verse 28. Prabhu, any of your realization, Valli Mataji, how you, anything, not only from this verse, maybe connecting it with the chapter itself, any realizations or comments you want to share? Or if anybody else has any other questions, hopefully that is one of us can answer.
I don't have any questions, Prabhuji. Everything is so clear and we're trying to learn and more. When you said how to connect the present chapter, the previous chapter, and how our understanding to be like gradually we have to perfect and we have to implement or understand the present chapter with the reflection to the previous chapters. And the way you said that even after the class, sometimes the mind will be wandering and into these chapters, into your words, and why we have to get out of this again, going into the material world. That's what I feel. Very nice class, Prabhuji. And same thing happens when you gave a nice example also, right? One is in the second grade, he is supposed to understand the first grade. But my thing, Prabhuji, I'm not studying in that focusing way. That's what I realized today. I have to go back every time and read from the chapter 1 again and again. That's what I'm trying to do. When I complete all chapters, I go back to the first chapter and I read again. That's very nice, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Wonderful class.
Right. Hare Krishna. Actually, maybe it is Prabhupada's humility, but I, nowadays with technology, you get lots of things shared, right?
Yeah.
Things that I recently came across was Prabhupada. I think he was either it was a letter or it was a conversation he had with somebody, and Prabhupada said, "You must read my books. You should read my books continuously." Even I read my books continuously, is what Prabhupada. Now that's why I was saying whether he is humble or he is really doing it. But in saying so, he see Prabhupada never ever sort of glorified or gave hints of his spiritual mastery. He's never done that in any of the books. Very rarely you see that, So in this particular case, he actually said, when I am writing the purports, it's not me who's writing, it is Krishna who's dictating these purports through me. So even I read my own book and my purport, I get so much more out of it every time I read it again. So don't it's so if he's thinking like that, where is our position? We will always find so much more because
we are almost like 20 hours into Maya, Prabhuji. Maybe only 3 to 4 hours we are putting into our sadhana. But when we focus more into sadhana, maybe we always postpone that for future. That's what I'm thinking, because the other things will be hitting us from the side, that we have deadlines and we have these things that we forgotten already and we are postponing. So this sadhana is taking backseat all the time, and once we sit, we get tired by that time already. That's what I'm feeling. because just want to take a break, like 4 days or 5 days, and come back again. Like the way they go to vacation, and then I feel it is missing. Recently, we had like a death in our husband side, in-law side. 10 days we didn't go to temple, we didn't pray, and all that things happened. So I just started going to ISKCON this Ekadasi only. I felt so much happy, like missing all these 10 days and how I am connecting back again. So is that a good reason, Prabhuji? I didn't know what happened, because 10 days we didn't do anything, prayers, we closed the puja room also. And suddenly I went to the ISKCON on Ekadasi. I felt like sitting there and chanting Elder Round, Elder Round.
So, Mataji, I didn't get. So, 10 days you had closed. Why? Because it is Shraddha Paksha, or?
Yeah, the Paksha that with the same family name. My father-in-law's brother who passed away in India last week. So we should not do anything. That's what they said. So we closed the doors and we're just sitting aside, and we didn't even go to the upper floors. Also, we're just staying in one room, and not going outside also all these 10 days.
Mataji, I've heard of the very same practice. We in my family also, I have heard and I've seen my elders act accordingly. I've seen that amongst my friends' families. I'm hearing that from you also. I don't know the right or wrong. My point is, what little I know. So don't take it for, just take it as a discussion between one devotee and another, one sadhaka and another, not even devotee. We are also striving, I'm also striving, and I'm also trying, right? So from that perspective, even I harbor very same question, like, is that right? Because my reasoning for harboring such a question is, by closing the door temple, or by not undertaking some prayers or celebrations, are we really cut off? Like, if the intent is cut off, are we really cut off? And can you really cut off?
Yeah,
He's there right in the
because
heart.
the mind is was doing the slokas, stotras. I got a habit of early morning waking up and looking at my hands and reading the slokas. Everything happens before eating also. Suddenly I started doing that, and it became a part of life. So we can't take it away from. Yesterday also I was saying it is the time of Aarti, and started reading those verses even while driving in the car. We went to Balaji temple yesterday and ISKCON the other day. So I feel like how much I missed all these days, and I'm trying to get back into it, and I'm feeling so happy about it. Yeah. Yes, Prabhuji. It is very hard to take out of our mind and heart. Yeah.
The fact is, whether we take it out of our mind or not, we cannot. I mean, you cannot disconnect from the Lord. So point in not thinking of the Lord. Because the moment we disconnect from the Lord, if the Paramatma is gone from the heart, Atma is also gone. The only reason Paramatma is gone is when Atma is gone from the body, right? So if he is not there, or the point is, you cannot zero him out. The moment you zero him out, we become zero. We are part of it. So it is
at least they said
impossible.
I can read Bhagavad Gita, so I just kept that book with me, and I was reading. But other than Bhagavad Gita, I didn't do anything for 10 days.
Yeah, these questions are probably, if you read the chapter 1, text number 41, probably answer you more or less. It's a indication of Arjun Maharaj doubts about it, But in the end of the descriptions of chapter 1, text number 41, it says that anyone who has taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, the giver of the liberation, giving up all kinds of obligations, and has taken to the path in all seriousness, owes neither duties nor obligations to the demigod, sages, general living entities, family members, humankind, and forefathers. Such obligations are automatically fulfilled by the performance of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's a Bhagavatam slok number, Canto 11, text number, chapter 5, text number 41. But above that, if you read the purport, it is not Lord Krishna says about the Shraddha, This is according to the rules and regulations of fruitive activities. Others need to offer periodic food and water to the forefathers of the family. This offering is performed by the worship of Vishnu. But the Lord does not say anything about this. So, and many people have a questions. My people, are there people in my control? They go in a different unit. They go by according to the karmas. And how can we change their karmas? We can request to the Krishna only. Just like we can request to judges, Lord, he's not guilty, he's good. He just become only witnesses. But the punishment is given to any soul, is individual responsible for it, right? So how the Shraddha has been developed like that. So
maybe Prabhuji, I think because it is only for the close people they give 10 days and other people they give only 2 days and 3 days, depending on the attachment to that soul, because they feel that it is time to mourn and they don't get that attachment or towards devotion towards the puja. Their mind will be towards the person who left already. So to avoid that, they would have kept these things. That's what I feel. Because even if we sit in puja, we can't focus when someone really close and really attached to us is away, right? That's what they say. Within the same family, means with the last name, they give more days, and other people they give only 3 days and 1 day, someone like that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the only reason I'm thinking they would have given that, because it will take time for them to get away and realize that the person is no more and we have to take our life without him, and all these things will come at that time. Bhagavad Gita helps in detaching with him also. So that might be the reason they say that we can read Bhagavad Gita, because it helps to heal our thoughts also. Right?
But my doubts are like it. Lord says, Mame Vanso Jiva Luke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manasustani Indriyani Prakrtistani Karsati. If you read 7, 8, and 9 and 10 of the 15-point chapter 15, Lord does not say anything about it, about the Shraddha, No. I don't mean to argue, with her.
Yeah, same here. So the question is there. I have not done any studies on it, but I am of the similar thought process as Prabhu. If at all, you should do more prayers and you should ask for more blessings for the departed.
Yeah, that's it.
Rather than not do it.
Yeah, that is for the devotees, Prabhuji. If it is a normal people in the regular life, they are not talking about elevated people here. So they don't know what level of maturity they have, and even the mature people, if it is someone very close to us, right, we feel more, and we will take realize that fact. That's what I'm. That's so good. Thank you for all your inputs. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Anybody else with any comments, or we can close our today's conversation with our prayers to the Vaishnavas?
One very nice thing that, if you have a little time, Prabhu, about the, I really like the one, the word in the middle of the purport paragraphs, Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 3, text number 25. Chapter 25, text 25. It is said that transcendental subjects in subject matters becomes clear in association of the devotees. I think that is very, very true statements. I believe very much about this satsang, and that helps each devotee very much. It's really true, because you get the benefit of listening other devotees, and their ideas. I mean, their devotional statements makes very much difference. And satsang is very, very important. I believe very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhuji. Prabhupada also says you cannot sustain if you are not in the constant touch of the devotees. So true. Okay, we will close our today's discussions with prayers to the Vaishnavas. Om Vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Kupa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Vaishnavebhyo
Prabhupada ki jai.
Guru Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.